Sixers fans, how we feeling out there? Hey y'all, my name is Lauren Gordon. Some of you may already know me on social media as Lauren Fan of the Year. Others may have just stumbled upon this podcast, but either way, I want to first thank all of you for tuning in to episode 7 of my very first podcast. I'm just a Sixers fan, the Lauren Fan of the Year story. Now let's continue the story. Y'all, the year is 2002. I am a wife, a mother of 4. I have 3 8-year-olds and a newborn. And in February, Philadelphia hosted the NBA All-Star Game. I remember watching the game on TV and hearing Kobe get booed by the fans in the arena, even though Philly was his home. Y'all, as fans, we are ruthless. I can't front. I was watching from home and I booed him too. It was nothing against Kobe. He was an incredible athlete and exciting to watch. However, he did not wear that Sixers jersey, and that's where my loyalty lied. Back then, today, and forever. As an opposing player, I can love you, respect you, and even support you. But if you're going up against my squad, then you are not us. You are them. Y'all, Kobe went Kobe during that All-Star game and would have 31 points, 5 rebounds, 5 steals to win his first All-Star game MVP award. Now, AI, on the other hand, struggled with shooting 2 for 9, and he only had 5 points on his home court. We would end the 2001-2002 regular season 43-39. We lost the Eastern Conference first round 2-3 against Boston. A few months later, in August of 2002, we traded Dikembe Mutombo to the Nets for Todd McCullough and Keith Van Horn. Remember them? So y'all, after coming off of maternity leave with Kendall, I gave notice that I would not return to work at Head Start for the 2002-2003 school year. I was grateful for that experience because the Head Start program paid for my accreditation so that I could become a preschool teacher in addition to providing tuition reimbursement for my early childhood education and elementary education college courses at Montgomery County Community College, or MONCO. It was my goal to take classes at MONCO, the community college, and then transfer to a big name college or university. I was taking a night class or 2 every semester, but once I had Kendall, I stopped. I was committed to just being a wife and mom. I had a great life and a husband who provided for his family. We had been in our home for 10 years at this point. And it's funny because when Larry and I left our apartment and moved into that house, we thought the house was huge, but to go from just Larry and me to a family of 6, the house I once thought was huge now felt much smaller. We had already outgrown our home. And in the fall of 2002, we moved to a much bigger house. So looking at my timeline, y'all, this is the hardest part, trying to keep everything in chronological order. Okay, here we go. So we would end the following 2002-2003 season a little better than the previous season with a 48-34 record. We beat the Hornets, but we would lose the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Detroit Pistons. In June 2003, we acquired player rights to Kyle Korver from the New Jersey Nets, and we got Willie Green from the Seattle Supersonics in a trade. And over the seasons, we would have players like Derek Coleman, Speedy Claxton, Samuel Dallenberg, Matt Harpring. Y'all remember those players? And in 2003, head coach Larry Brown had decided to resign after coaching the Sixers for 6 seasons. Y'all, overall, I loved Larry Brown as head coach. He was smart and he did get us to the championship finals, but I think there was definitely a tumultuous relationship between him and AI. Now, the Iverson-Larry Brown duo was an unlikely pairing as they both came from two different worlds. They had two different approaches to winning. They would go at it, but looking back, they both needed each other. Iverson learned a lot from Larry Brown, and Larry Brown definitely learned a lot from AI. After Larry Brown resigned, we had revolving coaches: Randy Ayers, Chris Ford, Jim O'Brien, and Mo Cheeks. Yes, NBA champion Mo Cheeks. And it's funny how things would come full circle. And Iverson would play with guys such as Mark Jackson. I have lots of photos with Mark Jackson, by the way, in my social media album. Kenny Thomas, Willie Green, John Salmons, Kevin Ollie, Chris Webber, Lou Williams, who we would call Sweet Lou. And y'all, as a fan, I loved Allen Iverson. He always gave 110%. And on the few games where he did struggle, I was like, hey, he's human. No one is on all the time. During the 2003-2004 season, Iverson skipped practices and only played 48 games due to injuries. But y'all, the fans loved AI. Philly fans, basketball fans, we loved him and we all voted and we made sure that he was a starter in the 2004 NBA All-Star Game. In 2004, I would make time to work out at my local Curves. Curves was a fitness facility designed specifically for women that only required a 20-minute circuit workout just 3 times a week. With my schedule, this was perfect and something I could easily commit to, and it was less than a mile from my home. Over the next few months, I got really close to the Curves owner, Lola. And one day, she asked if I wanted to open her club each morning since I was already consistently there each day that I worked out. I agreed. So I opened Lola's Curves and worked as a fitness instructor. I went through the training and I was able to help her out tremendously, as well as help women meet their fitness goals. When guests came in the door, they left as members because I knew the sales speech in my sleep like the back of my hand. I believed in what I was saying, so it always came across as genuine. I was a walking testimony because I was able to drop my baby weight from carrying Kendall by working out at Curves 3 times a week. I could always talk what I know and what I believed in. The members loved me and I loved them back. And I especially loved helping those women meet their fitness goals. It was a great place to work because I got to work out for free, listen to music, interact with the other women in my community, and get paid. And it was literally within walking distance. I would also take this time to learn everything I could about how Lola ran her business. She had multiple Curves locations and was very successful. I watched everything and I had lots of questions. I told y'all, I'm a sponge and I absorb information. I did my own research and I went to Larry with my plan to open my own Curves franchise. My husband fully supported me, and later that year, we opened our first Curves franchise. In the first 6 months, my membership grew to over 1,000 members. And months later, I opened my second location. And I thought back to my days at Gordon Phillips when I dreamed of opening multiple hair salons in multiple locations. But now it wasn't hair salons, instead fitness centers. Y'all, I was busy. A husband, 4 kids, 2 locations, 2 sets of staff, and over 2,000 members, all depending on me. And I also wanted to make sure I spent plenty of time with my mom and my 3 younger sisters. My life was busy, but it didn't feel like a chore or a burden because this is what I always dreamed of. I had the American dream. A beautiful family, a beautiful colonial home with a driveway and two-car garage, and a nice suburban neighborhood with manicured front lawns. And I owned and operated 2 franchises. All of this, and I didn't have a college degree. But what I did have was a supportive husband. And over the years of working in corporate America, I learned a lot from people in the workplace that I looked up to. I always surrounded myself with people smarter than me so that I could learn from them. And remember in episode 1, I told y'all I spent a lot of time with Nana, who ran a speakeasy from her house. I know I learned a lot from her at a very early age on how to run a business. There were always trade rumors swirling around AI. He was my favorite player in the entire world, not just the Sixers, not just the NBA, my favorite player ever, period. AI was us. He went against the grain with the organization, but us fans understood him. We spoke his language. We loved him, and he loved us back. But then, the unthinkable happened. On December 19th, 2006, we traded AI to the Denver Nuggets for Andre Miller and Joe Smith. Y'all, I could not believe it. We actually traded Allen Iverson, a man who was averaging 30 plus points a game, a man who sacrificed his body to win the game at any cost. He was now with Carmelo Anthony, Marcus Camby, Kenyon Martin and them in Denver. And as an AI fan, I was hurt. I felt betrayed. And I know it's a business, and the organization was probably tired of AI, and AI was probably tired of the organization, but it had nothing to do with his relationship and the love he had with us fans. We ended that 2006-2007 season with a losing record of 35-47 under Coach Mo Cheeks. Shortly after, in June of 2007, we drafted Thaddeus Young in the first round. He was the 12th pick. But y'all, watching the Sixers without AI was not the same. I was still feeling some kind of way about the trade. I thought back to when I was younger and I would write letters to the organization to give them my 2 cents when I was unhappy with the trade. But now I was a grown-ass woman with a family. I didn't have time to be writing letters. So instead, I just lost interest and I barely watched the team that I once loved so much. Y'all, our kids kept us busy. Every now and then, Larry and I would catch a Sixers game. From time to time, the older kids would watch with us, but they just weren't into it like Larry and me. The kids had their own interests, and they were involved in their own activities. Kirby was into music. She played 5 different instruments. LJ was a 2-time junior state champ wrestler. He played football. He made the Junior Olympics for track and field. His twin sister, Corey, also ran track, did the long jump. She played tennis and girls basketball. But y'all, one summer, we dropped Corey off at basketball camp at Millersville University. When Corey was unpacking her stuff in the dorm, we saw that she was paired with a roommate named Ashley. When her roommate arrived, we were surprised and excited to see that it was Ashley from her track team. Her and Corey were on the same relay team. And y'all, we were connecting the dots, and I would later find out who Ashley's father was. Y'all are not going to believe this. Y'all, Ashley's father is Chuck. Yes, my friend from high school. My friend who I played basketball with up at the Cut. I told y'all all about Chuck in episode 3. And y'all, I had not seen nor heard anything from Chuck since high school. And here it was years later, and unbeknownst to either of us, Our daughters were on the same track team back home and would now be roommates at the same basketball camp. Of all places. That's wild, right? All right, so let me look at this timeline. I'm trying to keep this story straight here, y'all. Oh, okay. So in 2008, the economy shifted. This was around the time with the housing crash and all that stuff. And y'all, the first thing that people cut back on is the gym membership. Plus, it didn't help that Curves had oversaturated the market by allowing franchisees to open their clubs now less than 2 miles apart. When I first purchased the franchises, the clubs had to be at least 5 miles apart. Now they were 2. At this point, most franchisees were filing bankruptcy or simply abandoning their clubs. Members would show up and there would be a sign on the door that would say, "No longer in business." We were all fighting as franchise owners just to stay afloat because it was already specific to women. And we were all fighting for that same demographic, and the market just could not sustain the growth. That was stressful because while I'm trying to make money to pay my bills, I also had to make sure that my staff was getting paid to pay their bills. I am grateful that I was able to do right by my loyal members. I was honest with them that I would not renew my lease once it was up. And at both locations, I had a member step up who offered to buy each club from me. I graciously accepted the offer. I was so burned out. Owning 2 Curves took its toll on my marriage, and I was glad to finally be done. I happily went back to corporate America. Having my own business was great, but no matter how great my staff was, no one was as invested in my business as me. I worked around the clock because I could never find dependable help between the 2 locations. I was working sometimes 12-hour days, 6 days a week, not to mention the 2-hour commute back and forth, and I was still taking care of my family and home. I was so stressed out. So transitioning back to corporate America was easy for me. I used to say, now when I go to work, I'm going to do my 8 and skate, meaning I'm going to work my 8 hours, give 110%, and then skate out the door come quitting time. That was the difference. When I owned my own business, I was never given the opportunity to clock out. I knew I could always fall back on corporate America. With my skill set, I never had a problem finding a job. Over the years of working in corporate America and owning my own business, I always learned as much as I could from the people who was where I wanted to be. And over the years, I had developed a strong administrative, management, and project coordinator skill set. And I learned early on how to work with people from diverse backgrounds. These skills would be invaluable, and it was something I knew I could always fall back on. Going back to work in corporate America would give me the work-life balance that I needed and still be able to make a decent living. Okay, back to my Sixers. In 2009, Iverson would return to the Sixers. I was glad that he was back. Hell, we should have never let him go in the first place. I was thrilled to see AI back in a Sixers jersey. I like the players that we had, like Elton Brand, who would go on to be our current Sixers general manager, who I happen to have lots of pictures with in my album on social media. And we had players like Lou Will, Thaddeus Young, and we had just gotten Drew Holiday. But truthfully, y'all, I barely watched the Sixers. I was glad we did the right thing and brought Iverson back home to Philly. But he would play his last NBA game in 2010. I knew this was the end of an era. Man, Okay, let's fast forward. The year is now 2012. Kirby was 19 and was in her freshman year of college. The twins, Corey and LJ, were 18 and had just graduated high school. Kendall was 11 years old, maybe just finishing up 5th or 6th grade. We signed Kendall up at our local dance studio where she took hip hop, jazz, tap, ballet, contemporary, you name it. And she was good at all of it. She was clearly one of the best dancers at the studio. I'll never forget this day. Larry and I were sitting on the sofa watching TV when Kendall plopped in between us and said she saw a Groupon for discounted tickets to a Sixers game. She said she had never been to a Sixers game before. Larry and I looked at each other in amazement because the Sixers had been such a huge part of our life, but not so much for our children. They had never been to a Sixers game. Larry and I shared our Sixers stories with Kendall. He was telling her about his connection to AI in Virginia. I was telling Kendall a lot of the things that I've already shared with y'all in the earlier episodes of this podcast. And she enjoyed hearing about how the Sixers had been such a huge part of our life. So then she said, well, then let's go to a game. This is a great deal on Groupon. Now, this girl is 11 years old. She talked about a great deal on Groupon. She begged, please, can we just buy the tickets and go to the game? I was like, Ken, I don't know. Larry was like, maybe another time. Then Kendall says, Mom, can I just use your credit card to order? And I remember her jumping up off the sofa, running over to grab my huge purse and handing me my wallet. And she begged and pleaded, Mom, come on, I want to go to a Sixers game, please. And then I saw the look in her eyes. And for a moment, I saw myself. So then I just rolled my eyes and said, go ahead, Kendall. Order the daggone Sixers tickets. She started jumping around with excitement. She was so excited. That's when I realized that I had not been a loyal fan or consistently watched the Sixers since AI was traded to the Denver Nuggets back in 2006. Y'all, I had not been to a Sixers game in years.